So Craig looks after the digital development team at Te Matapuna Library and Learning Services at the Auckland University of Technology, which I think is the second biggest university in New Zealand by number of students, after Massey, I think. Yep. Which I went to, the better one. No, it's not better. His team manages their Koha, VUFind, DSpace and Open Journal systems. And in his own words, he's interested in how open source software and libraries can create generally better products for users, a more satisfying work experience for staff, and collaboration that breaks down borders and barriers. And that philosophy really shines through AUT's approach. Alex, who's getting water, works with me at Catalyst IT. He's a software developer. He started as an intern 8 years ago. He's actually Don's nephew as well. No? Alison's nephew. No? Cousin? Brother? Sister? I don't know. In Te Ao Māori, he definitely is. But he works across 3 open source platforms, Koha, DSpace and VUFind. Alex's passion is in end user training and consultation. He loves sharing knowledge with users and learning from them how these systems continue to evolve. He's part of Catalyst's team along with Alicia and Te Wainui, maintaining Koha version 2405, 2411, 2205. 2211, the LTS. Cool. Please welcome Craig and Alex.
It's lucky Alex came back because he's first. That looks. Oh, where's our?
Tēnā koutou, no ingarangi rātou, ko airangi, ko kutirana, oku tipuna. I tipu aki au ki wakatū, I noho ana au ki wakatū, ka mihi hoki au ki ngā tohu o te rohi nei. Ko Alex Buckley toku ingoa, no reira tēnā koutou katoa.
Kia ora koutou, kia ora te whānau, no kotirana, no harmony, no ingarani o ku tipuna. I tipu ake au ki papatoitoi. I tipu ahau i te taha o te awa o Tamaki me te moana o Waitemata. E noho ana ahau I oranga. Ko Craig taku ingoa, no reira tēnā koutou katoa. What I said there is that my people are from Scotland, Germany and England a long time ago. I come from a place called Papatoetoi, which is in Auckland up north, beside the Tamaki River and the Waitemata Harbour. I live in a little suburb called Oranga that no one's heard of in Auckland still. I'm Craig, and Chris introduced me already, so I can skip that bit. And you too, so you can skip your bit as well. I just want to start by saying what a privilege it is to be here. All these people out here that I know either by video or by name, and important members of the Koha community. And I suspect not many of you know who I am, and that's good too. And also, thank you to Peter Lucas and Catherine. What a couple of amazing presentations. Thank you to Chris and the committee for putting us on after those two. Appreciate it. I want to start off by explaining the title of our talk. And yesterday I went for a bit of a bike ride around Wellington. I'm quite sore, actually. I went for quite a bit of a bike ride around Wellington. And one of the places that I stopped off at is Lyell Bay, right down in the south by the airport. And Lyell Bay is the home of a band called Fat Freddy's Drop that I hope some of our international guests know. If you don't, you probably need to. I stopped at Lyle Bay because Chris Whaiumu, who was the founder of Fat Freddy's Drop, had his studio there, and Chris passed away earlier this year. And I sort of sat on the shoreline in the sun, listening to some of his music, which was really beautiful. But before that, I stopped at a place called Taputuranga Marae in Island Bay. And I wanted to visit Taputuranga because I find the story of the marae and the founder, Bruce Stewart, really a wonderful story. So Bruce Stewart got out of jail in 1974 with $25 and a dream. And the culmination of that dream took 40 years, and the result was a 10-storey whare at the marae, built by hand from recycled materials, and you can see it in the picture there. Sort of climbs up the hill and was dug into the hill. An amazing creation, really. But Bruce Stewart's dream was a place, in his words, where people could live Māori. Bruce passed away in 2017, by which time the marae could accommodate 350 people. It was a refuge for young, homeless and unemployed Māori, and it was a hub of Māori language revitalisation. Unfortunately, the main buildings were destroyed by a fire in 2019. And Bruce Stewart's family are working to rebuild and to continue their father's work. And the title of our talk comes from a whakatauki, or saying that's attributed to Bruce Stewart. And that's it on the board, on the screen. Ko te ringa tangata I hanga I te whare, ko te tuarā o te whare I whakatipu I te tangata. Those who build the house are also built by the house. And Bruce obviously used it to, I shouldn't call him Bruce, goodness me, Mr. Stewart, obviously used it to describe the impact that Taputuranga Marae had on the people who invested their lives and their work and created there. And so I sort of tentatively use it because I think it really speaks to the way our work in open source is reflected in the communities and the people that we become. So that's where that came from. Some of you know Demian Katz on the slide here. Demian is the project leader of the Viewfind open source discovery software. I really love his quote up there, and I use it a lot because I've discovered in the last 6 years that I've been fortunate to work more intensively with Koha and Viewfind and DSpace and other open source systems that he's 100% correct. So in the spirit of the theme of this Kohacon, I wanted to take the chance to say thank you. I'm so grateful for everything that I've received in our open source journey. I don't think that gratitude is necessarily an expression that's commonly used about work activities, but I think the chance to work with the type of people who get involved with open source is a real blessing. Damien's quote continues, as you can see up there. It's a really good summary, I think, of why Alex and I are here today. Working together, sharing, solving problems, and not least the thought that while the world goes to hell in a handbasket, we can and do in some small way make a difference. Look at them. Look at them. I think this is from 2014, but I might be wrong, but I'm sure a whole bunch of you recognise yourselves up there. Who else plays Spot the Chris Cormack in Kohacon photos? I do. Looking real happy, eh? No, why are we all so happy? Why are we all such a generous and giving bunch? Because we are. What an awesome thing to turn up this morning to Kohacon and like everyone's just hugging and, It's cool. Even if Catherine wasn't here, I'm sure it would happen. Alex and I presented at Tertiary ICT Conference in Auckland about a month ago. No hugging at Tertiary ICT Conference, believe me. But anyway, why are we so happy? Well, obviously everyone in the room knows that we've got the best product and better solutions and better services because we use Koha. But I also believe that we're developing better people and maybe even a better society because open source is good for the mind. Working with open source makes you smarter and better at your job. Responsibility combined with opportunity lifts everyone involved. Open source is good for the spirit. It's a lovely thing to work in a cooperative way, to contribute back and to receive from others. Having better quality software maintained by a large community is a huge positive in the workplace. Open source is good for the organisation. So in library land, we're guilty of doing things the way they've always been done. Like we think our library management system is a bit stink, so we need to run a big tender process and buy the best new library management system, whatever that means. That's how the vendors need us to think. We need to look at things from a different direction. We don't need the supposedly best new library management system. We need the most sustainable solution that provides the best return on our effort and investment. Working with open source not only rewards that type of analytical thinking and planning, but it develops those skills as well. Open source is good for society and communities. That can mean ensuring data sovereignty, honouring Indigenous peoples, or keeping our spending within our own backyard. And like Peter Lucas said earlier, and I took this out of my talk, but I'm putting it back in now, sustainability, the environment, open source is good for that. It's not hard to make those links. Professor Ian Hickey, who I think is Australian, this is a quote that was reported in the newspaper from him earlier this year maybe, and it was in the context of everyone coming back from holiday and being depressed about being back at work. But the thing is, I think it speaks to the value of our collective and collaborative communities. And, you know, not just for those big picture things that I just talked about, but for individual staff members. And so I certainly agree that there are, with Ian Hickey, that there are a lot of individual benefits that we get as staff from working with open source technologies. And I've seen those at AUT. This is my team. So, yeah. So we build... where is Catherine? No, not that Catherine. The previous Catherine. She disappeared. Oh, hello. Yeah. I just want to say what an awesome thing, the stuff that you talked about, and the way it overlaps with what I've got up here in terms of the skills that our staff develop, and applying it to students and getting them in there at the beginning. So good. We build capacity and capability in our staff. So taking ownership and control of software solutions, we improve our own engagement and motivation. We learn new skills. We understand systems on a deeper level. We develop new abilities to communicate with those working in IT, documentation, research, security, and data. We get to control our own destiny. We get the flexibility to decide what we want to do with our systems, what's important to us. We drive change rather than responding to it or not seeing it at all. We can try things, make mistakes, and most importantly, take ownership for fixing them. We get to work closely with a huge global community of librarians. When it comes to the development of new features, we're collaborators, contributors, and sometimes even funders. We learn more about and take more responsibility for safeguarding our data and that of our institution's members. Kaitia kaitiakitanga is a Māori word which sort of means guardianship. I apologise profusely for alliterating it with all those other C words, but it fitted, so there you go. And we improve our critical thinking, decision-making, analysis, planning skills, all improved by working in open source. And I think now is a really good time to hand over to Alex to talk about software itself. Yes? No? What's happened here? Yes.
Thank you, Craig. So, like open source communities, open source systems work best together. Here on the screen, we've got 3 different open source collection management systems, and each of them have their own niche, but working together, they complement each other. So, as we know, Koha is the best library management system in the world, supporting cataloguing. It supports cataloguing and management of physical and online library resource metadata. DSpace, where, on the other hand, is optimised for storing and making available large and numerous files and data sets, and so it's really useful in an academic context. Think about academic research outputs. You've got the thesis files, you have accompanying files, so this is where DSpace comes into its own. Viewfind, on the other hand, is the system in the middle. It can be used as a linchpin for fetching library resources from Koha, academic resources from DSpace, and making them all searchable in one place. Now, there are several different ways that these different open source systems can integrate, but it all comes down to 2 essential things. So it really comes down to what type of information needs to be shared between the different systems. So we've got initially record metadata. So this is resource-intensive information. It's data in formats like Mark 21 and Dublin Core, and it doesn't frequently change. This isn't a rapidly changing data set. Libraries aren't every few minutes or every few hours editing and updating these records. So what this means is when we're doing the integration between Viewfind and Koha and Viewfind and DSpace, Viewfind isn't having to fetch this metadata information from Koha or DSpace every time someone does a search in Viewfind. That would be a waste of resources. So instead, what Viewfind does is a harvest once or twice a day just to pick up any changes in those other systems. Whereas there's other types of data that change rapidly, and they need to be fetched every time someone sees it in Viewfind. So this would be things like item availability information. You don't want to rely on harvesting this information once a day and then displaying it 10 hours later once an item is no longer available, and because that will create all manner of chaos at the library front desk trying to clarify the situation there. So how do we go about, for that record metadata, actually getting that from Koha and DSpace into Viewfind? Well, what we do is we use a web protocol called Open Archives Initiative for Metadata Harvesting. What a mouthful. But as this is tech, there's an acronym, as there is an acronym for everything, and that is OAI-PMH. So both Koha and DSpace have something called an OAI-PMH endpoint. This is a web page that exposes the metadata from these systems in different formats. Other systems will then harvest from this web page. But what's really good about OAI-PMH is that you can group a subset of related information together. Viewfind can then harvest that. So that is helpful for when you want to create a curated searchable site, which is something AUT and us at Catalyst created with the EA Rainbow Research Portal, which we'll be talking a lot more about tomorrow. In essence, what happens with OAI PMH is Viewfind is the first full harvest from the other system, and it gets all the information that it's supposed to fetch. And thereafter, it does an iterative harvest, picking up additions and deletions. So added records or deleted records are pulled across, and this makes sure that the Viewfind search index, the Viewfind search site, remains efficiently synced with metadata changes in those other systems. So here on the screen, we've got a picture of the OAI PMH page in Koha. And we've got data here in Mark 21 format, and we can see a whole bunch of different control fields. So this page here is what Viewfind is harvesting from. Meanwhile, here we have an OAI PMH page in DSpace, different format, different data, but this is again what Viewfind would harvest from. So that's how we get that really resource-intensive record metadata into Viewfind. Well, what about that rapidly changing data set that I referenced earlier? Things like item availability, borrower checkout lists, things like that. So what we need to do is use APIs. So Koha comes out of the box with a suite of REST API endpoints. So to break down what this is, it's a chunk of code that Viewfind or another system can run in Koha. It can retrieve information, or it can affect a change in Koha. So for example, when you click to request a book in Viewfind, that's actually calling an API in Koha, running an API in Koha, and it creates a hold, a reserve in Koha. The benefit of Viewfind calling and using API endpoints is it's refetching the data every time Viewfind displays it. That means we know that it's accurate and it's up to date. We're not relying on information from 5 hours ago. This is another type of integration that can work quite well between Koha and DSpace. So when we see a lot of libraries starting off their Koha journey having electronic resources stored in Microsoft SharePoint. So this might be PDF files, images, videos, things like that. Another common theme that we see is libraries that want to upload large and numerous files to Koha using the file upload tool. In either of these cases, the URL where the file is stored is saved in Koha in the 856 U subfield. What this means is when someone views the record in Koha, they see a link that they can click to actually view the file itself. The problem is with both of these options, using Microsoft SharePoint or storing large and numerous files in Koha, is they're not necessarily ideal solutions. So SharePoint means that your data is stored under US jurisdiction. So for those libraries outside of the US, your data might not be held, your data isn't under your own sovereign laws. So that's something to consider. Meanwhile, for Koha, storing large files, Koha isn't optimized for storing large files, in that using it for that purpose can lead to performance limitations. But there is an alternative, and that's to use DSpace. So as I previously mentioned, it's an open source system that's optimized for storing large and numerous files. Like with SharePoint, you can set permissions at both an individual and group basis to determine who can see different files, who can edit different files. You can get the URL from DSpace and stick it into the 856U subfield in Koha, so it works exactly the same as if you were using SharePoint. And another great plus with DSpace is actually, if the DSpace instance is using something called a handle server, it means that the URL for an item or a file is permanent. So if you move the item around within DSpace, the URL that you've got saved in Koha in that 856U doesn't need updating. So that'll be a good time saver. Moving on, I just wanted to touch and give a shout out to the National Library of Finland. It's a great example of an organisation that is using both Viewfind and Koha like AUT does. The National Library of Finland is contributing to both these open source projects, and their contributions have made our life a lot easier when integrating Koha and Viewfind. And we'll talk a lot more in detail about that in our presentation tomorrow and how we're using their amazing developments. For now, I'll hand back over to Craig to talk about improvements for how different open source communities could collaborate more in the future.
Thank you. I think the National Library of Finland are really cool, and it would have been nice to have Ere here, Ere Mahala, because he and his team do so much great work and the influence of that stretches, it's global and across multiple communities and projects. Is the type of work that makes me really feel that there's, hope for where open source software is heading, and probably more importantly, where open source communities are heading. And I guess to come back to that stuff I was talking about at the beginning, and kind of strengthen what Alex said about, blending products together and using them for the right thing and using them together. How can we do that better? How can we do that in ways that enhance everything we do? So I think the first thing is strength in numbers. There's real value in strength in numbers. And I'm lucky to be on the Viewfind project management committee. And I came on board around the time when Viewfind joined the Open Library Foundation. And that gives us financial protection, it gives us legal protection, governance obviously, but it gives you so much more as well. And one of those things is improved communication and collaboration. Open Library Foundation has the WolfCon conference, and all of the projects attend WolfCon, whether in person or virtually. And it really opens you up to opportunities that you might not otherwise take. So there's meeting and networking, and it's like I said before, it's so awesome to meet some of you people for the first time. It really is different, kanohi te kanohi. But there's also the generation of new ideas and fostering discussions around collaborative opportunities and synergies. I think it's really important that we embrace tools that work well together, just like Alex was describing. Alex and Catalyst really do help us to understand how software works together and how we can use things in new and better ways. And we all need to be open to ways of working like that and new solutions. But also we need to support the communities that support those pieces of software. And I guess that's the last point there, funding and finances. And it's the most difficult part, I think. But a man can dream. I noted at the start that Bruce Stewart's family are planning, working and fundraising to rebuild Tapu Te Marae. It's hard work. I imagine it's exhausting, and at times it must seem pretty easy to admit defeat. But like working in open source, it's worth it, because those who build the house are also built by the house. Thank you.